All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for this week's stream. Starting a little bit later than normal because some few things came up. Gonna go from like now to about 4:30, so an hour and a half. And then it's off to baseball because it's baseball season for the kids. I want to roll through these first one, two, three, four PRs that came in through contributors, which is great. And then I want to revisit this whole drush command for configuring because somebody did start to work on this. So when we get to the drush idea, it's to expand configuring PHP Storm, not PHP Storm, PHP Stan. So in PHP Stan, we allow configuring these entity mappings, which lets you say this entity type has this class. This is this entity class. Here's its storage. And I'd like to expand that more to allow configuring the fields and those field types. And that would be a real big pain to configure by hand. But if a drush command could introspect your Drupal site and then say field underscore body is a text area with summary field, we can start to do some really cool inspections. Kind of like the PHP Stan DB one is doing. There is a DB extension that can analyze your queries against your database. So that's the end goal. That just kind of got paused. The last time I worked on that was a year ago, actually over a year ago. And I want to bring that back. But first I want to go through a few of these items here. So let's get started. This is some housekeeping items. We have the deprecated set output commands. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. It's a little too big for me to read. That should be good for the video. So this was a little outdated. I need to update this core baseline as well. So let's go ahead and check out this pull request. So GitHub PR checkout. And also I finally paid for GitHub Copilot the other day. And so far I've really been loving it. I've been using it mostly in some Laravel code, and it's been providing great like one-line completions. Also with Cypress. I use Cypress end-to-end tests for a few things, and it like if I copied a path, it was like cy.visit. It did some really nice low-hanging fruit auto completions. Nothing extreme, but it saved the few minutes of time that it's easily worth what, $120 a year. It's going to save me more, like at least 3 hours a month, if not a week, of those little things. If I use it for work, I can't use it for work because, there's certain rules about all this AI stuff, reading things that are part of work. But for some little side work, side projects like my Whiskeydex thing or PHP Stan Drupal, it should save a lot of time. So all right, so I need to go in and finish any instances of set output. So this I should be able to copy. What was done here. So previously with GitHub Actions, if you needed to make like an environment variable used later on, you had to do the set output, but now you can echo to the global and variable GitHub output. CircleCI has a similar fashion because between each step, the environment's reset. It's like its own step and container, but GitHub persists this environment variable. So I'll go ahead and git diff the update core baseline. And I'm going to retitle the PR because I'm fairly certain the change logs are based off the pull request messages, not the issues. So I want that to match. I'm looking at the output of required PHP Stan Drupal. I don't see the init, neither before or after this PR. It should have that. So let's look at the scheduled tests. And we have this in the core baseline, but also in version alias. Let's see. So version alias is used there and also in, oh, set the alias for self, and this job is build integration. There we go. So I want to look at the build integration. And when does this run? Okay, and require PHP stand Drupal. So if we look here, let's see, composer required, dev main. I'm going to copy this here. It looks like the following. Unscheduled. So that's when it's scheduled. And if I were to go back and look at one of the PR jobs, come on. If I look at one of the PR jobs, this doesn't have it because that's an older one. Here, let's look at the previous. The reason we need to have that is, so we need it to pull in the local SHA, hash, whatever you want to call it. And we do an alias as this minor version, and that's because Drupal core with 10.0 added PHP stand Drupal as a dependency. That was on a schedule. Here's from the PR. Ensures SHA is added after for pulling in local merge. So the trick is that ensures that the local merge is used, because we take the local repository, and if we did just a branch, it's not actually the merge commit. So with how GitHub does pull requests, it's interesting. It's not just your branch. There's actually the merge commit, which exists inside the repo. So by doing this trick, we're ensuring that the correct commit is being pulled in. And I'm just going to double review the PR. Yep, so we do it here, and then in the baseline, on last week when I worked on it, PHP stand Drupal now runs the Drupal core baseline scans, or rather it validates the baseline, so it runs against Drupal core, so that way we can see if any changes made to PHP stand Drupal cause regressions. I'm working on PHP stand Drupal, just doing some open source maintenance work on it. These live streams are my way of making sure I set aside time to actually maintain some of my work. And let's see, is this going to let me merge yet? I should approve this because I fixed my concerns. But back to the baseline. Oh, because I made a change and it caused Drupal core PHP stand baseline to error, and not for the better. It was a regression. And now whenever we make changes to PHP stand Drupal, it's going to see, did we fix false positives in the baseline or actually cause regressions? So you're looking for a repo to contribute as open source. I don't know of a good one offhand. It would be not this repo because it's very niche. So this takes PHP stand and it is an extension to make PHP stand actually integrate and scan Drupal code better. A good intro open source project, I'm not sure of what one would be. I could say Drupal, like there is with Drupal core. Let's see if we did Drupal core new contributor guide. I'll see if I can find something quick, because I know there has been an effort in the Drupal community to make it easier for a contributor to start working against Drupal core. Quick information. Look at this. There's 5,000 guides, and let's see if one of them is going to be sufficient. Yeah, so you know what? I'm going to put this in the chat. This seems like a good launching point that has a bunch of little guides to get started on how to contribute to Drupal. Drupal's a little different. We don't use GitHub. We have Drupal.org, which is where we host all of our issues and code. We are beginning to migrate code and issues to GitLab to kind of be more quote unquote modern. So there is a little bit of a curve in that regard. All right, I think that link would be a good introduction. The Drupal community is great. I got started with it 12, 13 years ago now, and I was tasked to build a e-commerce site, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I hopped in IRC. Yeah, we used IRC at the time, and I got a bunch of help. Now we have Drupal Slack, which is you can find on Drupal.org. Um, yeah. So one reason they picked GitLab is so we can self-host instead of being beholden to GitHub.com. For better or worse. When I say for better or worse, I mean it that way we own our infrastructure, but then it's also tied to that infrastructure, which it's like the University of Portland or something like that donates a bunch of hardware for the Drupal project. And then we use some, I believe like AWS is used for the runners. Just the idea of just owning things. And GitLab has actually done some work that GitHub won't do. So if we have bugs with GitHub, we're hosed. Like nobody's going to fix anything. On Drupal.org, let me find an issue real quick to show. One thing that Drupal does that I think is really great and GitHub doesn't provide is issue credits. So if you work on a contribution, everybody that works on it is recognized. So in this issue, let's get to the bottom of this gigantic one. It's a year old. It'll take a second. This new Drupal core baseline just takes forever. So in this, there's 129 comments, and these are all the users who commented or worked on the issue, and anybody with a check mark was credited. And that means that, when you make a Git commit, there's an author, but that doesn't really explain all the people who worked on a fix. So everybody checked here was given credit. That's something that GitHub doesn't provide, but GitLab is looking to introduce as a feature. We also have issue forks because GitHub, if somebody makes a contribution and you want to fix it, only the maintainer can. It's like here, maintainers allowed to edit this pull request, but if you want to come in and help contribute to this, you can't. You'd have to fork their fork and make a PR to their fork, or make a new PR from your fork of their fork, which isn't the best experience in my opinion, but that's just how GitHub works, and it always made me not like to contribute. I'm gonna mute. Thank you for the follow. So that's one reason that GitLab's nice, is we were able to come up with this idea of issue forks, where there's an issue, we have a fork, and anybody can contribute to that fork in that pull request. And GitLab just announced they're gonna make that a default feature as well. GitHub, yeah, they don't do anything to fix the platform. No, that's a lie. They do a lot of features. There's a lot of like nits and picks, but they've been doing a lot of work in Dependabot, and a lot of the UI fixes I appreciate. So I don't want to throw them under the bus. They are a business. They have to work on features. They have to find ways to make money. But there's a lot of nuances that are great for businesses, but not open source community management. And that's where GitLab, I think, will be more willing to fix, because they use their own stuff for that. All right, I'm just going to merge this because I know it's not going to affect the core baseline. So that issue's fixed. And then Drupal core switched its branching. Before it had major branch, minor branch, and it always made a new minor branch for each minor version. And now they're going to move to a canonical like head branch called main. The first step is 11.x.dev, and then eventually that'll transition to main. Again, because Drupal.org's tooling doesn't handle that idea. So I need to make sure this is going through correctly. So I'm going to click update branch and then check it out and get my local. Yeah, users kind of get used to everything. Or we deal with it because there's no alternative. All right, so this is updated. Let's go check out this PR, get some housekeeping in order. And then I guess what would be an interest, like, I don't know what it would look like contributing to Symfony. Symfony might be one. Maybe you can look at an issue. It's been so long since I got into open source that I don't really know. Like, I got in IRC and ask questions and try to build stuff, but it's just different now. So if you're using Symfony at work, it might be good just to look at the issue queue and just try to find something, but this is super intimidating. Um, yeah, or just explore how it works, or go to a meetup. I know that was my biggest pivotal moment. Is I started working with Drupal. I found started talking to this guy Andy, who was a maintainer of some of the shipping modules. He kind of mentored me. He mentored me on how to write patches and contribute, and then helped me get to my first Drupal conference. And from there, it was wheels on the ground and going. You're junior there. I was junior at one time too. Everybody was a junior developer. It's just junior developers can contribute code. I think my first patch was fixing the United Postal Service labels certain countries differently than the ISO standard and whatever else. My first patch was to rename those labels in the dropdown. Like, it wasn't huge work, it wasn't monumental work. I just found like, hey, this is a bug from our client, and just making a little bit of a change as needed. Symfony might be a bit more advanced for contributing. That is true. Laravel would be hard because that doesn't have a UI, and Laravel doesn't believe in opening issues. It's make a pull request or sorry. That's where Drupal might be helpful, because if we did look at Drupal, I'll open an issue really quick, because if you can get a Drupal site up and running, there are things you can fix. All right. So while that loads, I'm going to get back here and review this workflow. Is I tried to read it in the diff, and I wasn't sure if it was actually working as we would expect. So this needs to be not experimental anymore. So Drupal 8 can't run on PHP 8. That was one of the major blocker or major breaking changes of Drupal 9, and that's because of like some Symfony things. So PHP 8.1 with Drupal 10, PHP 8.1 with 11.x, and we're going to call that experimental. So we have the setup, downgrade dependencies if the version is 8.9, because right now the dev dependencies are locked for Drupal 9, because Drupal 9 has security support until December, and a lot of people are going to be using Drupal 9, scanning their code to get ready for Drupal 10. So I want to keep that as my main target. But in here, upgrade Drupal core for 10 into Drush 11, which Drush 11, that's not needed anymore because I did fix that. I forgot to update the comment. But this here is broken. Can I link you to the Drupal GitHub repo? Yeah, so we don't have it necessarily as a repo, but I'll give you, there's this link here. And if you wanted to find an easy issue to possibly look at, we have not Noise, Novus. So we do have a Novus issue queue or tag. Now again, this isn't like working in GitHub or GitLab, but here's a link. All these issues are considered Novus, so they should be easy to do. And easy is suggestive. It depends on your skill level. But this add name and description for type URL, so that's probably like a PHP doc. Where do you push them? That, I would read the earlier link. That's going to have it all documented. Each issue has a way to upload a patch, which is the old way, or they do issue forks, and that should be in that first contributor guide link. Or in the issue itself, it'll say how to contribute the fix. How did this pass before? Or did it not upgrade? So it ran against no PHP unit. Yeah, so it just didn't run. That's what happened. So this stayed at no. Oh. Hold on. Yeah, wait. Sorry, I check out composer require. That's build integration. Sorry, I got myself confused here. Tests. Drupal 10. Here we go. So it didn't upgrade. So that means install dependencies. We got core. So yeah, Drupal core only stayed at Drupal 9. So that means our CI wouldn't be testing things we want it to. So we'll fix that. Core. Okay, so no update. That fixes that matrix. And build integration. Let's change this to 11.x. That's no longer experimental. Let's find all instances. All right, that should do it. 11x.dev is the branch. This means I gotta manually review everything too to make sure the runs are actually going as I'd expect. I think this should be okay. Git diff. Yeah, that's okay. May fix remaining 10.x usages. Oh, sorry about that. I have no way to mute, and unfortunately, my office is directly below my family room. So when my kids decide to jump up and down, I get that wonderful thunderstorm sound. So apologies for that. All right, this is pushed, and I'm going to go ahead and approve this. I didn't see this, so I guess I need to check for all test instances where this is used. Oh, that's searching the fixtures also. 10. Pushing compare 9, 9. It's greater than or equal to 10. Not equal to 9. It's less than 10.1, which I hope 11.x works like that. All right, that should be okay. Let's see if any results came back yet. Why did this get skipped? What broke? Did I test? Job was skipped. Why was it skipped? What did I do? The tests. None of the tests ran. Why not? Test linting. All right. I gotta see what I broke. Is it because I didn't? Oh, you know what? I bet I have to explain. I have, since it's a. Hey, thanks for joining in. I think since I had these as includes, they need to have the experimental definition attached. Otherwise, they're not valid. I was hoping that maybe they would be auto completed or auto assumed with the defaults. So let's see. I need to figure out where else I removed that from, assuming that was the case. Build integration. I hate working with CI stuff because it is so tedious to edit YAML files, run something, see if it works or not, edit the same YAML file, and then hope it works again. Okay. Fix strategies. So hopefully that fixes it. And that means I can move on to feature this one here. Ignores trusted callbacks. This false positive needs to be worked through. And what's neat is this failing test proves that the baseline fix is in. So while this runs, I'll open this result. So when I added checks for date callbacks, and this datetime callbacks, and the render callback rule, it caused a false positive in Drupal core. And that's why I started running this check, because now it says ignored error pattern. So if Drupal core, this error, if this job fails and said ignored error pattern blah 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 is not matched, that means I fixed a bug in PHP Drupal that Drupal core hit. So this is a good failure, and it is allowed to fail. But I need to review the actual fix while this builds. Okay, this looks like all the jobs are running. So I'm going to go ahead and check out this pull request. PR check out. All right. So let's look at this fix. We know it's fixed, but I just want to see what the implementation is. And to do so, I always run the test with my debugger on so I can step through the process. This PHP stand reads code and then turns it into an abstract syntax tree, which is a joy to figure out. Let's see. I can't run this individual test because of this quirk. So we'll run this here. Test 554. And here is the sample code. So I'm going to run it and debug the fix. So what it's doing is it's checking if check is callable. So if the constant array type is not callable, it gets the item type and checks if it's a union type. Right-handed side of union type is a variable, nothing to check, and bails. So it's an early check if we cannot determine the callable, I guess. So this datetime callback, string datetime callback could be this or some incoming value. So I guess this is the failure. Right here is the missing that variable. Well, this is a beautiful line of code. So let me look at this baseline output again real quick. So line, where's the line? Ignored pattern, a key 0, this string. Okay, because it says it's just a string. So let's debug it. Oh, we got this exception. And let's go to town on this rule and the fix. While we're in here, what's this warning? Use self. That's not a static method. Construct. Where's the code? 177. So if it's not callable, okay, so the idea is that if the right-hand side of the variable is array, we cannot determine. Look at that. So this has honestly been my favorite thing about GitHub Copilot is automating these messages in my comments, because I fully believe in commenting the heck out of your code. Because when you come look at this code in 6 months or a year later, you're going to go, why did we do this? Code comments explain why. Otherwise, you spend another 2 days trying to optimize something that doesn't need to be optimized or cannot. So let's see. Get item type. I want to drop my debugger here. Go back to the run and run it with Xdebug and see what's going on internally. If you don't use Xdebug, you should. It's great. It saves time on debugging, and then you know the internals of your application. So I would say that's one thing. If you're talking about how you're just a junior dev, that utilizing tools available to you are how you can level up and your understanding. Like, you can read code all you want, but being able to put a breakpoint and step through code and see the internals and how it's actually doing things is huge. So we're in here, we got constant array type, and again, the reason it's a constant array type is we're hitting line. Let's go to our node. The node attribute start line 76. So we're parsing this line right here, which is an array of callables, and that's what we're iterating through right now, is each of those. So if we look at our constant string type, key type, constant integer type, key types. We're gonna get type. Let's just go to the main type. Type is constant array type. Do we have the actual? No. Okay. So let's look at this. It's not callable. And that's because we have key type is union type, item is union type. Types this string, constant integer. Yeah, so the key, because the key is not an associative array, so that makes the key an integer, which is to be expected. That's why it gets the item type, and checks that the item type is a union type, string type, there really isn't a good way to deal with this. So I'm going to break this apart and just say if it's instance of union type, if now I know that this item type, constant array type, item type, let's do item type equals, because if I do it inside this instance of, it's going to be associated correctly, which means I can get some autocomplete goodness out of it. Yeah, Xdebug is my favorite. It is probably the main reason that I leveled up as a developer so much. Do an instance of constant string type, try to get constant strings. Okay, so that might help. So if it's a union type, item type get constant array strings. Why not? Let's rerun the debugger and see what we get back with constant strings. Yeah, that's one where I wish we could give Derek more money. You know, you see, yeah, the amount of work that is made possible by having Xdebug available. Some people should just be living lavishly, to the extreme. So I wish there was. That's what one thing with open source that has always bothered me is funding, and sponsorships don't fix anything. And I'm not sure how we fix it besides the WordPress model where it's GPL. Plugins are technically GPL, so you can give them away for free. Like if somebody gives you the source code, but you pay for releases because the Red Hat model of paid support doesn't work for like Red Hat was like the golden goose. Like somehow they made it work, but I don't think it can be replicated. Um, so unfortunately, let's see. I'm not sure the best way to fix it, but there's got to be some way. But it's like Xdebug is distributed via PECL, and what are you going to do? Ask people to put in like an API key in their INI file, like you would for New Relic? Um, and that's a lot for like one person to maintain. So I wish there was a service that made it easier for open source developers to monetize their packages. I'm just not sure what that would be. So right here, item type get constant strings is 0. So if we do, I want to try this out. If count foo is equal to 0, right hand side of union type is not a constant string, we cannot determine if the dynamic value is callable or not. There we go. Open Collective does help in ways, but again, it ties into the whole sponsorship where you need the will of people to decide to do sponsorships, and then most sponsorships turn into be individuals doing all the work. It's really hard to get organizations to do sponsorships. I think that I don't have a search, so y'all are going to see my back end really quick. I wrote an article on this. So live streaming, I used to do before when I was independent for a year, and I did some sponsorships for live streaming, and in turn that actually did get me some sponsorships on GitHub sponsors. What did I do? Releases. I need to find the one that I actually did. That. Oh, so I had some ideas here. When I had my own, when I was independent for a year, I did allocate 1% of all my income to projects. So I was able to do that for a bit. But then I had to stop because then I got a real job or W-2 job because of insurance reasons. Oh, here we go. I'll share this in the link. This was one of my ideas that if we could come up with a way of having to pay for releases. So essentially to get that artifact that is a stable release, you pay a fee. Or if you don't want to pay the fee, you can use a previous version or like the dev snapshot, which is what you can do with WordPress plugins because it's GPL. Drupal is GPL. Symfony is MIT, whatever else. But the idea is that you can have an open source license and distribute your code. But the idea is that you're selling the project management and release management into that packaged archive or artifact that can be used and distributed. And that's what you can charge for. Because you're not charging for the code, you're charging for the labor and effort to making that artifact. And that's what that blog post goes through, is some ideas on how we could fund open source through artifact delivery, which is kind of not entirely what Tidelift is doing. Tidelift scans your artifacts and then you pay Tidelift and then they give a portion of that to the maintainers that are part of their platform. But again, maintainer has to be part of their platform and follow their rules instead of just like selling their work. It's an interesting topic, and I'm not sure we could solve it without maybe like for PHP, like what if Packages had something set up that every time you do composer require, there's something set up and it's like a usage fee. But only if you sign up and opt into it, but then it's opt-in. It's, again, it's a tricky area. So I think this is going to cause a failure, maybe. Yep, this broke it. Not existing. So shoot. Yeah. Paid support. Yeah, paying for support is hard. At my where I previously worked at Centauro, I can't even spell it. So Centauro, we built Drupal Commerce. Previously, we were known Commerce guys, and one thing that we sold is Stack Overflow. They came up with Teams, I think it is, and we use that as having a private Stack Overflow that you could pay. I don't know. Do we still, is it still on here? Retainer support? No, I don't think it's on here anymore. Oh, Q&A access site. So for 99 bucks a month, you get access to like a private Stack Overflow to look at previous answers and ask us support questions. It was our alternative to a issue queue, but that's still not necessarily enough. Not everybody's going to pay for an entire year. They might use it for a few months when they're building projects. So that's where making money as an open source developer via support isn't really the best. I think it'd be more reliable on pushing GitHub sponsors than actually selling support. Shoot, I removed the breakpoint. Restart it. So the problem with doing this count foo is equal to 0, excuse me, is that it's returning. It's also saying it's not callable for not existing. So there's something about in this code for checking the value types and constant string type. So I should actually debug inside get constant strings and see what's inside of there. Okay, so it didn't catch my second breakpoint, and that's okay. We'll restart it, line 76. What I'm going to do actually is I want to update this array. Let's simplify this with the multi-cursor. If you do not use the multiple cursor, I highly recommend using it. I know on Mac you hold down Option. It's probably Control on Windows or Linux. Like I remember way back, that Andy gentleman I was talking about, he used Sublime Text, and that was one reason why is they had multi-cursor support. And this was back when PHP Storm like not first came out, but I remember I was using it and he didn't adopt it because of the cursor. And I was like, there's so many other things, but let me tell you what, it is probably one of the coolest features when they added it. It was great. I know VS Code had it like out of the box, but I just remember when PHP Storm didn't even have that. All right, so the reason I put them on a new line is that way when we have the node object, which is the node in the syntax tree, I can see the start line. So I'll be able to see it's line 77, 78, or 79. Alt J to do multi-cursor select. Okay. What is... I'm curious what. No, I don't know. Mac OS key layout's going to be completely different. So I'm not going to hit random keys just in case. All right, so collecting data. What I want to do is actually debug on line 79, because that's what I care about. So let's do node attributes, or let's see, get attribute. I think that's going to be, 1 second, expression, node abstract, get attribute. Oh, wait, get line. There we go. Start line. Where'd my breakpoint go? This is also one of my favorite things, is setting conditions on my breakpoint. So node, get line 79. That's what I want. So I'm going to say equal to 79. And now if I hit done, I'm going to add it. I don't need this breakpoint anymore. I'm going to restart my debugger. I didn't have to, but I'll just do it again. So now it's not going to trigger this breakpoint unless the condition is true. So I can ignore when it's processing this line and this line, because this is the one I care about debugging right now. We select a piece of code and press match, the same concurrence on the next line. Yeah. I wonder what that, so that's the multi-cursor select. Because I know I've done, like if you hold down the option, like here, it'll let you select multiple lines and your cursor all over the place. All right, so we're at our line here. Control Shift G. Okay. So I want to step into this because we know the item type's a union type. This types, we got this type, constant string type. Pick from types. Let's type get values. Type get constant strings. This gets static object type. Get constant strings. 0 because it's an object type. Okay. That makes sense. And then shoot. There's got to be a better way for this because we can't tell the difference. So let's look. Union type. So I'm going to inspect the union type, see if there's anything to possibly simplify this, but I don't think so. Like we got to get the values array for the item type. But is subtype of, describe, get template, is object, is enum, has method. Get values array. And get value types, and it checks the first value type. This get values array. So let's stop the debugger, which I think the hotkey's 5 now. Oh, debugger is not running. I need to close the structure. So we'll do get values array and run the debugger. And again, at this point, it's just nitpicking. This works, but I just want to see if there's a like quote unquote right way or righter way. Okay, so oh no, hold on. I'm gonna read this. So if you highlight this variable and press Shift G, no, hold on, Control. Okay, so it highlighted that line. I'm gonna try to figure this out. Control G. Not just highlighted the word. I'm gonna check this out. So if you need to edit multiple lines with the same prefix. Oh, I see. There it is. All right. There. So I was doing it wrong because I highlighted the whole word. So let's say that how this ends in type. So there's the prefix of item. And if I do Control G on this side, lowercase g, it highlighted item in the next line. And it allowed me to change the prefix on the next line. That's okay. That's cool. Normally, I just go for Shift, Control. Oh, wait. It's Shift on my end, or function. Yeah, Shift, Control. Why can't I think of it now? I refactor. I do the refactor option. Having to say it out loud, I completely forgot where I put my fingers for the hotkey. And can't even do it. Shift 6, there it is. Because I have a Max, I have to hit the function key to get F6 instead of it playing music or changing my backlight. So usually I do refactor to rename everything. Count. Oops, that didn't run. Oh, because it's gonna let's comment that out. So that way it doesn't crash. And I can just get to debugging. So hopefully if I can get this cleaned up, that the past 2 weeks have been a bit of like chasing entity query access bugs, detection bugs, and then anything that when I've made a release caused issues in Drupal core to unblock doing the drush command. Or I think I pinned some other issues. Basically, I did a lot of work on this, and then Drupal 10 happened, and PHP Stand is like a pillar to doing deprecated code analysis in the Drupal community. And I just got way burned out on the whole major version readiness effort, and took about a 6-month pause on any of this work. And now I'm feeling good and trying to get back in the swing of it. So I'm unburying a few things. All right, so we got item type, and then we have the get values array, which union types. Types, what does foo give us? Error type. What? Oh, because it's not existing, right? That's where I did the breakpoint at. Okay. So error type. But that should be a string. Hold on. This doesn't make sense. So constant array type, because I'm doing it on the union type. Union type would be yeah. So that's I guess that can only be the thing is we got it. Item types, get types. Let's see. Makes my eyes bleed. Yeah, I don't blame you on that. Couldn't find a decent way to determine if the right side of the union type is not a constant string type, but string type. And string type is magical, meaning it's a variable. Okay. But I want to see if maybe if we get types, if there's something in there. Foo, constant string type, not existing. So get types, returns an array, get sorted types, sorted types, get reference classes, get arrays. Let's see, union type, it'd be nice if there's a infer template to array to string is greater than equal to, smaller than, is greater than or equal, is greater than or equal, greater than. With types, compound type is float, is true, is constant value, is constant scalar value. Hey, JD, thanks for making it. JD. That's accessory, create no. Let's do string type. No, string. Object type, null type, mixed type, iterable type, float type, string type. Is class string type, generic class string type, string type. There we go. Gosh, there. Is offset if it accepts. Oh, here we go. Is the constant strings is 0. It's not that one. So get types. I wanted to see if union type has offset value type. Type has offset value types. Has offset. No, not offset. I wish this was documented. If, one second. Array type. Offset type to array. If offset site is not type, yeah, so that would be the offset in the array. Has, like, I just want the union type to say it if it has, but I guess that's where get first iterable value type, get iterable key type, get first, get last, is array, is constant array, is oversized array, is list, is string. And is string is going to return true for constant and base string type. So that's not what I want. Is super of accepts within reason. No, is array. Flip array, pop array, search array. Let's check that out. Item type. Actually, I have no idea if it's going to be work inside a union type. It does. All right. Search array. Type. Oh, this. No, because that requires an actual type. It's greater than or equal to. Search array. This union type. Let's go to actual. No, that's going to be inside of any of its types that are arrays. That's not the case. To array. Traverse. This types returns this if changed. Type, nope. We don't want to traverse it. Traverse simultaneously. Try remove. At this point, item is just curious to see what that returns. So I think it has to just be get the values array and get the value types and see if it's not a constant string. But maybe break it out more so that way when I look back at this in the future, it's like, okay, this is why we had to do it. Because there's no easy way to figure out what's the right-hand side of the union type. Come on, XDebug. So let's see what happens when I call to string. Yep, this union types combinator. Error type. Go figure. So let's just do, since this was constant array type, get values array. That's right, because item type. It's a union. Get the types. So it could be more than one type. Just feel like there's got to be some way to do this. Get object class names. That's pick from the types. Get arrays. Get constant arrays. Get constant strings. There's gonna be no constant strings because that doesn't exist. It's a string type. Yeah. So like the get name of it. So that, yeah, we want to do that instead of doing an instance of technically. So you do get type, get name, but types, a union could have more than one type technically. And I was just trying to find a more elegant way, like to search the types, like get types. Is stop. Like so get types is an array of types. If we were able to do is super of type, like I just want to know internally if it's a constant string or not, or if it is string. Is literal string. Oh, here we go. So the difference is like I want to avoid doing instance of or hard coding on the string or int, because in the future maybe this could be resolved in different ways. So I want to check like is literal string. So that's not gonna work either. Union type. Maybe if I look at the interface, something's gonna be. So is numeric string is string. That's gonna return true regardless, because in our test, date callback is stringable. It's just not a constant string. It's just a string. This is a constant string. So I guess that would be it, if it's a literal string. Use compare. So I'm gonna do this debug. Turn off that breakpoint. See if that will catch. Get value types. We don't really need the value types because that should be the value type is the fact we're a union. Go back to the string interface. Yeah. So I guess here's the type. Was it this page or on the actual string type? I wonder if is non-empty string would count too, but I think the literal is what I need. What I would like to see is union type has type and just pass in a type class, but then again we're doing like a shorthanded instance of. While that runs, I'm gonna do a quick check here. So foo trinary logic is 0. Get constant scalar value doesn't help. That gets a value, but not the type of the value. It's I'll try it. We'll see. Is there a shorthand? Yeah. So I'll run that also, because that's one thing I was wondering. So let's do bar type. Because the difference is we need to detect when it's not a constant type. I keep getting that part confused. So if bar is an empty array, we should be able to we should know. If I'm understanding you right. Yeah. So get constant scalar values. This is a constant scalar. This is not, because it's a string, so it's not a constant type, and that constant string type, but this is a constant string type. So thanks for catching that, and hopefully that is the trick if the count of bars equal to 0. So this count bar equals 0 will make the test pass, I hope. So bar is an empty array. No, that's not what we wanted. Item type, union type, get constant scalar values. So constant scalar type trait. So constant string type is supposed to return its value, but that didn't. Not benevolent. Pick from types. Do. Oh, let's try values. Let's try types and values. I'm gonna move my breakpoint up to here and step through those. See, because that does seem like it would make sense. Hopefully. What was I doing? This is ready, so I'm gonna approve it and wait for Xdebug to catch. Approve. And merge. Still waiting on that. All right. So, step into the bar. So for each types, it has a is const scalar methods from a count to just an if statement that is true. So type, this should have nothing in it. Get values. Get static object type. No, there's no scalar values for. Whoa. Hold on. If inner values. Wait. What? Hold the phone. Is that a bug? Because it returns. Shouldn't this be a continue? And it's a far, so I can't edit it. I know somebody opened a feature request to allow that to be possible. I'm not sure how, because a far is like a zip archive. PHP stand. I'm going to open a discussion because I don't know if it should be an issue. New discussion. Support. Copy reference is supposed to exit to return if first type has no inner values. Tried a method which invoked blah. All right. So, which invoked non-benevolent pick from types. Maybe that's what non-benevolent means. In the for each, if the first type does not have inner values, it does a return versus continue to check the second type. Non-benevolent pick from types. Like, I don't, is there a benevolent pick from types? Pick from types. There it is. No, that does the same thing. What the heck is a different? Oh, this looks the same. This is protected. Benevolent union type. Okay. So they are identical, but look at in the benevolent union type. No, this assumes inner value will be an array. So I think there might be a bug. In the for each, if the type does not have inner values, it does a return versus continue to check. Is that intended? I noticed the same logic in pick from types. I didn't open this as a bug because I wasn't sure. There's a bug versus discussion. Sure, if it really is a bug. All right. Well, that. I mean, I guess. Pick types. Yeah, pick from types. Let's get inner values. Now that weird. Okay. So not scholar types. So I'm gonna move my breakpoint back down here. And let's see, I bet this is also a benevolent or non-benevolent. Yep, so that means that won't work. And if we did is Kant scholar, we go to union type, non-benevolent union results. So we can't trust any of that because it breaks on the first one. Get smaller type. I wonder what this does though. I want to show that. Okay. So I wonder what the smaller type will be. If the smaller type will be the string or not. Otherwise, there is no way to work around this. We have to tap into the array and do a type of. Weird. I only thought it would combine. Sorted types, exceptions with reason. Is this going to do union types? Yep. Array map, this types. Mixed type. Yeah, okay, that's not it. So, done with that. Get values array. And just step through all of this again. And I bet this is literal string. Yep, non-benevolent. Non-benevolent. So I don't think that has to do with anything if it's a benevolent array or union type or not. It might just be a bug in there. And not a bug. I just don't know why it wouldn't check each type in that case, because what if a later type supported it? And I might be looking at the wrong way because it could be like using is super of. So Baz error type. Because it's from the constant array type. That's right. Stop. So I keep doing this wrong. Yeah, does seem very benevolent. I just wish it's all because I don't want to tap back into the constant array type. I was just hoping the union type would do something, get constant strings. But that's the thing is, get constant arrays. Just pick from types. What did I do here that made this not work? Because the constant array, this should return an array, except with reason. Yeah, is accepted by. We don't have another type to do comparison with. So come on, let's see what gets returned in here. Close that. Right, Baz. Empty array, but we know that we're on line 79, which has a constant, oh, that's constant strings. No, that should be it. Union type. Pick from types, get constant strings. Pick from types. This pick from types. Oh, there we go again. Pick from types. If the inner values has no value, it returns and it doesn't iterate over all of the types. So I will try something. Array map. What did I set the minimum? Oh, PHP 4. We still support PHP 4. Array map. Hey, thank you, Copilot. So here's my array map. I don't want to do is literal string, but array type. Get constant strings. And let's rerun the debugger. So the pick types isn't working. I wanted to just use something that existed. Not happening. So I'm just going to do it myself. I don't know why I wasted 15 minutes or more not doing this, but I try to re-leverage existing API methods because then I have less to maintain. What is this warning? Oh, PHP Storm update. So I like to reuse it, and that's because PHP Stand Drupal was built before a lot of some of these API things existed, and I've been going back through old code, and it's like I have to rework things because it didn't leverage the API. Whether API existed or not, different story. All right, so we're going to do array map. We have an array of arrays, so that means we can do array merge spread operator and close, and I have no idea if that's a good or bad thing for readability. But now we can get the constant array strings. So we'll say let's call this union constant strings. And we can say if, oh, I can uncomment that count. So instead of foo, we can say, all right, I think that'll do it. Instead of running through Xdebug, I'm just going to click play and see. So if we have a union type, we get all the types and check if there's a constant string type in any of them. And then errors. What's the error? Awesome. It's because I changed the lines. So we've got line 79 and 84. Would be 9, 84. I close that discussion. So I want to copy this code and clarify. I wanted to get all constant string types from each type in the union. I went for this code instead. One, two, three, four. Pick from types has the same return in for each as well. I'm sure I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't know it, but hopefully that at least brings some clarification. Rerun the tests. And it should pass. Sweet. All right, I'm going to push this up. Actually, I'm not, because I modified the test here. So I found out PHP Storm will give you the little green arrows to run individual data provider sets, but it seems to break after a conditional. But it works here again. Because the data set's inside of the array. Got it. So I guess I could refactor to match the same, but that's one reason I had that. Before I begin, let's do PHP vendor bin, PHP CS. And the code technically worked before. And did I really need to spend 40, 35 minutes trying to find the proper way? No, but now the code has less technical debt, because everything about this right here is technical debt and uses the API in ways that aren't guaranteed. Whereas now, all right, good, that's all passing. Whereas now in our rule, if we look at the diff, or what will be the diff, is we get the item type. If it's a union type, we call get types. And I don't know if there's any way to make it more resilient than having to do a union type, because get types is only on union type. So I'm not sure of any other way. Well, compound type is accepted by, is subtype of, is accepted. So yeah, I'm not seeing anything that would allow you to do it, and it's tagged API here, so maybe that means it is okay to do instance of checks. The whole point is nitpicking this to death to make sure that what do you want to say? To make sure that it doesn't break. Hold on, let's see this. If count errors, because this is the last gate. Errors is equal to 0, and then check if it is callable or not. Where that went. So I know PHP Storm, I like doing the commit in here sometimes, but when you're trying to push to pull requests that somebody else opened, they get kind of weird. So I just end up using the terminal for all of it. So git commit AV. And V, if you're ever curious, V just does verbose, so you can review your diff while writing your commit message inside the command line. Refactor determining constant string types from union. All right, so let's push. And let's see if this fixes it. I think I found a way. Took a bit. Oh, just comment there. And I should have linked this. I'll link the discussion. If anybody's curious, I'll plop it in there in the chat if you want to follow along. So we should get all green with the same errors when this is done running. And then I got to update the branch, or I might not. All right, so while that's going, I need to review this issue. Oh, there's no work for it. This just proves that it is in fact broken. So render callback rule, excuse me. In Drupal, we have this concept called render arrays. So instead of having to hard code everything in like HTML all the time, you can use an array to define a structure, a render tree, if you will. So that render tree gets converted to twig throughout the render process, and we have these different callbacks that are allowed. And these different callbacks are pre-render, post-render, and access callback, lazy builder for doing streamed building or rendering. And the one security issue, this wasn't Drupal-Geddon, but another one is there could be a way for somebody to inject an untrusted callback. So if you have a callable that is put into the render tree for processing, it has to implement this interface called trusted callback interface. And that trusted callback interface, so we have trusted callback and render callback. This one's not documented, but trusted callback method has a static class for returning the granted methods. In Drupal 10, this will now be, or with Drupal 10 and then 11, it's replaced with an attribute, which makes it a lot easier. But this rule doesn't validate that any of the methods in that array are part of the value from trusted callbacks. So I thought there was a to-do for validating this. It wasn't. And that can be seen with this test case. I'm going to do a refresh over here. So in this test case, we can see that method is access forbidden, not entrusted callbacks. And here it is in the interface, but not in that method. And the test is assuming those errors should exist, but then they don't show up. So we have a test failure already given to us, and then it's time to try to fix it. So while this test runs, I don't know if I'll get started on this because I do have to run in a minute or so. I'm going to go a little bit longer, but got baseball practice coming up. Just at least find an idea and put it on the comments. So if is callable, so error, not error. So read this. This means it's not callable. Functions aren't allowed because they can't be trusted because there's no way to assign them to the trusted interface. And here we get matches. So if matches is 0, that's an error. If object type matches 1, so this splits up a class method. Match 1 is the class name. Match 2 is a method. So else if callback. So if it's not an instance super of, this would need like else. Something wild like that. And I don't know how I feel about that. So if we got the new object type, get property without transforming static, get method, hey, matches to scope. Whoa, not that far. Get variance, get return type is super of mixed type. Yes, no, we don't want that. But we do want to get name, get declaring class, get a search, get variance. Now it should be in the variance. I think variance helps you handle extensions like children types, sorry. So we have, there should always be 1. I don't want the return type. I want it to do native method reflection, get variance, array, parameter acceptor with PHP doc, get parameters, get return type. That's not going to tell us what's the contents. So we have to actually execute the code, which makes me kind of go, I don't like that. Because we shouldn't be executing code, but I don't think there's any way with reflection to find the contents of a static method. Problem, we would need to technically execute the class to get its values, I think. Not call. We would actually need to call the method to get its values. Even though the method is static, I don't believe its return values can be parsed that way. So that does make me nervous. This is testing that head baseline, which is the thing that actually matters, that it fails the same way. All right, that's going to take 2 minutes. I'm going to run the branch update and let that run. It takes like 8 minutes to go. So I'm just going to leave it at that. This PR will be an interesting one that I'll probably tackle next week. Let me look at these issues I've got. Stub, service arguments, provide some way to disable rules. I wish I could pin more than 4 because these are the ones like I really want to work on as features, but I want to fix this bug too. Actually, I'm going to rename this as a feature. That's a bug and an enhancement at the same time. It can be both. Reflection class, you should be able to get the values if I understand what you're trying to do. That's you know what, let's class type equals, oh wait, that's actually a thing. Foo equals get class reflection, get method, get native method, here it is, trusted callbacks. So if we get the native method, which returns extended method, get variants, get name, get prototype is deprecated, is final, get throw type has side effects, class member reflection. So maybe if it's the naked reflection, not naked, whatever, it'd be like the completely native one, get declaring class is static, get prototype, side effects, where's get class reflection, where's get the naked class reflection? No. Let's see. Get object class reflections, get naked class, get class. Oh, maybe it's in this native. Core reflection method. So let's see about this. So boom, get method. Get method. Reflection class. Come on now. Core reflection method. Reflection method is static. Export. Saying true export as opposed to emitting it. That would be interesting. Oh, that's a deprecated in 7.4. To string is public, is private, is protected, is abstract, final, static, destructor. Get closure. Closure for the method. That's interesting. So why don't I ideas and make sure I put this context in so that way when I get back next week at this, I know what I'm talking about. So get closure. There's a dynamically closure for the method. Forbidden for static methods. Never mind. Get modifiers, invoke. Here we go. We can then do invoke with null for first param. So that looks like it would be get native reflection, get method, invoke, null. Make that easier to copy. So who should have the method names then? All right, so maybe that would work. Thank you for giving me the nudge that reflection class should provide it. Just took a second to get to the details there. And I'm going to undo that code just in case I commit it. What do we got going on here? I'm going to approve the PR because it's good to go once that job runs. So we know it's callable at that point. We need to see if it's been marked as like if it's been approved or if it's part of an array that says yes, these methods are approved. It's way easier when we just deprecate this array of methods thing and use the PHP attributes. But that's the idea. Is we know it's callable, but next we need to see if it's in an allow list and not just there being called. So it's the second layer of validation after we know it's callable. Because, yay. All right. So this is at 2 minutes. It's going to take a bit for this to finish. I think I know the next steps for this render rule for next week. And that's it. I got to go run and do some baseball. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. And I'll catch you next week. Bye.